What's up, guys? It's Dan here. Today we are making some no-knead brioche bread. It's a really simple recipe that requires pretty basic techniques and some simple equipment, but if you're hoping to get this done in one day, you're going to be out of luck. This is going to take about 16 to 48 hours. That's due to a long, slow, cold fermentation in the fridge. So this is a great Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon project. So that'll be ready to bake sometime Sunday morning, maybe for some French toast brioche or some brioche grilled cheese. So let's get started. Let's get that dough. I got the recipe from Bread Illustrated, one of my favorite books, and it is a loaf, not individual buns, so we'll see how it goes. So out here in front we have some bread flour. I prefer King Arthur organic bread flour. I like King Arthur because it shows the protein content, gives you an idea about how much gluten you're going to get. So we have, let's see, 1 2/3 cup bread flour. We have 8 teaspoons of unsalted butter. Sorry, 8 tablespoons. 3 eggs. Room temperature, 1/4 cup of water, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and let's see, 1 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast. I like SAF Instant. That's what the French bakers use, so that's good enough for me. All right, so here we go. So we take our flour, whisk it up a little bit, get some air in there, any lumps out, and we're going to whisk in our salt and our yeast. Make sure it's well mixed in there. And in a separate bowl, we are going to add our sugar, our water, and I'm going to melt this butter down, add it to the sugar and water, and also crack the 3 eggs into this and mix. Okay, so we've got our 3 eggs cracked and our butter melted, so I'm going to add it to our water and sugar. And whisk all those things together. You don't need to go crazy, just until the sugar has dissolved. Okay, next we fold the egg mixture into the flour. Just going to pour it all in, and using my rubber spatula here, fold the egg mixture into the flour. Scraping down the sides as necessary. Okay, so we are going to cover tightly with plastic wrap or my handy dandy silicone bowl topper. Makes a nice airtight seal and doesn't waste a lot of plastic wrap. And we're going to cover for 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes have passed, so let's take a look at our dough. That doesn't look like much right now. And again, this is no-knead bread, but kneading is really used to build the gluten network, so we need something else to build the gluten network. And for this recipe, that's dough folding. So I've got my dough scraper right here, and I'm just going to do some Some quick turns. And it doesn't look much like right now. But after 4 more of these, we should have something pretty cohesive. So we're going to let this sit for another 30 minutes. We'll come back and repeat the process. Alright, so we're back after a half hour. We're going to fold the dough again. Okay, we're back for fold number 3. So same process. Okay, so we're back for our last fold. I'll fold it one more time for tonight. Again, these folds are necessary to build the gluten because we're not kneading this dough, provided the structure it needs to rise. Alright, that's the last fold tonight. We're going to cover it and refrigerate between 16 and 48 hours. Okay, we are back the following day. This has rested in the refrigerator for about 20 hours. So we'll take the top off here. And the next instruction is to remove the dough. Sometimes it helps if you have some flour on your hands. Remove the dough from the bowl onto a generously floured surface. Okay, so we're going to divide the dough in half. And we're going to cover one piece with some greased plastic wrap. Keep the dough from drying out. And we're going to work one piece at a time, pressing into a round shape. Okay, so now we want to fold the edges of the dough towards the center. Okay, now we flip it seam side down. We slowly form it into a ball. You can really use the grip of the countertop or this rolling mat to really create some surface tension. Okay, so there we have it. We've got a nice dough ball. We're going to repeat with the second piece before our next step. Okay, so these dough balls, now that they've been folded and rolled, are going to rest for about 5 minutes. While that's going on, I'm going to take my loaf pan and grease up the inside so we don't get any dough sticking to the sides or the bottom. You could also use something like Pam to make sure you get into all the little corners of the loaf pan. There we go. Okay, our dough balls have rested for about 5 minutes. Our next step is going to be repeat the process. So we're going to turn it seam side up, press into that 4-inch disc, and repeat the folding. This folding is very important to getting that gluten all lined up so that when it hits the oven, it springs upwards, getting those nice big air bubbles. Okay, so we folded, and now we roll, again using that tension of the mat to form into a nice ball. Okay, we're going to keep that seam side down. That's the seam. Seam side down under this greased plastic. And we will repeat for the second dough ball. Rotate about 90 degrees. I like to keep my pinkies on the mat and use that to really drag the dough along. Form a nice tight ball like that. Okay, again, seam side down under our greased plastic. Okay, so we've got our dough balls all set to go. We've got our prepared loaf pan. So now we want to take these balls, and again, seam side down into the loaf pan. You can see these aren't exactly the same size. Hopefully that works out okay. We want to gently press these into the corner. Like so. We're going to cover this loaf pan with greased plastic, let it rest and rise for about an hour and a half to 2 hours until these dough balls are about 1/2 inch below the lip here. So we will cover it up and come back in 2 hours. One last thing before you set your timer, now would be a good time to preheat your oven. So we are looking for the rack around the middle position of the oven at around 350 degrees. I usually preheat my oven about an hour in advance to really make sure it gets up to temperature. Okay, so we are back about an hour and 15 minutes after we started the timer, and you can see each of the dough balls has risen a bit and kind of spread out within the loaf pan. So now we've got to put it in the oven, but before that we've got to do a little egg wash. This is 1 egg, a pinch of salt, and about a tablespoon of water. So that's going to get brushed over the top. The other thing I should mention while I'm finishing up here is that ovens vary on their temperatures pretty widely, so I recommend purchasing an oven thermometer. I actually had to turn my oven up to 375 to achieve the 350 that the recipe calls for. So make sure your oven is actually the temperature that it says it is. Okay. Lastly, to know that this is done, this is going to go in for about 35 to 40 minutes. We're going to rotate this about halfway through the baking process, and the temperature range we're looking for on the inside of the dough towards the end is about 190 to 195. Now, one of the tools that I really strongly recommend is an instant thermometer. This is the Lava Tools Javelin Pro Duo. It's not the most expensive one out there. It's also not the cheapest one. You can find it on Amazon. I love it. because it gives an accurate read in about 2 seconds. So you pop your oven door open, get a quick read, and you can close it up before losing too much heat. Again, that one was highly recommended through America's Test Kitchen, but there are others out there that do more and are more money, but also there are some out there that are a little bit cheaper as well. Okay, so this is going to go into the oven now for 35 to 40 minutes, and again, we're going to rotate halfway through. Okay, so we are 19 minutes in, so let me turn that off. And I just want to point out one thing. You can see the oven here is set to 375, but you'll notice the oven thermometer on the inside is hitting right at 350. So the oven thermometer is really the best and most accurate way to get the temperature you want. So I'm going to rotate this loaf pan and bake for another about 18-19 minutes. See a nice golden brown starting to form. I'm going to get that oven door shut right away so as not to let any more heat escape. Okay, so our timer has gone off and we can see we got a nice golden brown. So I'm just going to take our instant thermometer and take a quick check. Again, we're looking for 190 to 195 internal temperature. So let's get a look here. Looks like it needs a little bit more time. Maybe a couple more minutes. All right, so we want a couple more minutes. Let's see if it changed the temperature here. Yeah, we're getting close. I'm gonna say that's good enough for me. I'm gonna pull this out of here. Okay, so we're gonna let this rest in the pan for about 15 minutes before we take it out. Okay, so we waited 15 minutes for the loaf to cool down a bit in the pan. So we're now going to carefully turn it out. Carefully turn it out. There we go. All right, this is the hardest part of it all. This now needs to fully rest for about 3 hours. So come back in 3 hours and we'll slice it up. Okay, so now for the moment of truth, the first slice. Looking pretty good. Get that dough.